thanks to Tumi, and we go from one search for excellence to another, and this occasion, delving into innovation and the key priorities. Gentlemen, please take your seats. Thank you very much indeed. As a very quick starter, let me just run down our panelists here for you. The topic is the minerals industry investing enough in innovation and focusing on the right priorities? And to address that, I'm joined by Engineer Badr Al-Atni, who's the Senior Vice President for Freight at the Saudi Arabian Railways, Christoph Beck, who's Chair and CEO of Ecolab, Dr. Robert Johnston, who is the Senior Research Director at the University Centre on Global Energy Policy, Salah M. Saleh, who is the Vice President of Aramco Transition Minerals, John Stanton, who's the CEO of the Weir Group, and right on the end there, a million miles away almost, Sami, is Sami Takaloma, who's the President and CEO of Metso. So thank you very much, first of all, to all of you for joining us. The title comes in two parts. It's about priorities, it's about investing enough. But I'd like to kick off, Saleh, if I could, with, I suppose, a proof point, an example of how innovation is being brought to bear into this sector. And you're coming from Aramco, from a very traditional, essentially an oil drilling world, and you're bringing that into the mineral sector. So give us an example as how that's affecting and introducing innovation into the sector.
I can reflect on our experience from Saudi Aramco as a major player in the oil sector. And in order to reduce the exploration cost, increase success rate, and also reduce the cycle time to find discoveries, we as a company have invested a lot of capital in talent development. We took them from early stage, from high school, we developed them into advanced degrees throughout the schools to contribute in finding discoveries in very large areas. We also have a lot of experience in acquiring large surveys, high resolution ones, that can optimize drilling, and by doing so, we were able to, again, increase our chance of success in finding oil deposits, as well as reduce the time to achieve that. Now, we put that engine into use when we decided to move into mineral space by combining our extensive data coverage, like 3D seismic surveys, our advanced computing capabilities. We employed one of the largest supercomputers in the world, and along with our digital and AI, we were able actually to identify aquifers with high lithium concentration that our president announced yesterday, up to 400 ppm. Now, this is one example where investing in talent, data, as well as advanced capabilities, supercomputing and digital, were rewarding to identify not only oil gas target for the past 90 years, but also identify potential mining resources that we look forward to develop under the potential partnership that we announced also yesterday.
So that's the technology, excuse me, at the forefront, but also with a transfer of experience and expertise from another sector. Very direct innovation that comes into play. Christoph, can I turn to you now? I mean, as I said, this falls into two parts in a way. Is there enough invested in innovation, and is it the right priorities? You're from Ecolab. You're all about efficiency of water use. So I have an idea where you might want to come from with this, but your take on that question.
Yeah, I love it. The question is not so much, is the industry investing enough, innovative enough within its own industry? It's much more versus the rest of the world. We're the largest water company, focused always more on new technology, high-tech data centers, microelectronics as well, serving 1 million customers everywhere around the world. And interestingly enough, when I think about the previous panel focused on Silicon Valley, we're based in Minnesota, that nobody knows, but it's a place where most of the computing industry started. We were the first Silicon Valley with Cray computer, with control data. We missed the transition to personal computing that moved to Silicon Valley, and that was the death of the computing industry in Minnesota. So talking about trends, when I think about the fantastic day that we all had yesterday here, talking about the future of this industry, what this country is remarkably well doing as well, we focused a lot on the energy transition. And when I think about the United States, for instance, energy transition is not even on the agenda anymore. Nobody is talking about it as we speak. And probably next week it's going to be even less than it is as well this week. And energy transition, which is important, is going to happen in the next 20, 30 years. There's another major trend that's happening, which is called AI. That's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. And just to put it in perspective, AI will require, well, a lot of minerals, for sure, with all the chip manufacturing and production of all the devices that we're using then afterwards. But it's estimated that AI in the next 5 years will need the power equivalent of the whole of India and the water equivalent of the drinking needs of the United States in the next 5 years. And I would bet it's going to go even faster than that. So the key question for the industry is really, are we moving fast enough to answer those needs that are huge opportunities? And I think for the kingdom, especially here, well, there is energy, there is minerals, there is great funding for the means as well, for the ambitions that they have here, which are remarkable. Well, there's one big element that's missing, and it's water. And that's one that we should talk about.
Just before I move on from that, you said at the start, look, that no one's even talking about the energy transition now. I think there would be a view here that that train has already left the station. I mean, it's not going to turn around and go back again. It's in full flow, and so it's not as perhaps a darker picture as you might paint.
It's absolutely, and it's a great transition. We see, so the EV demand obviously is a bit different than most car manufacturers had planned. One exception maybe a little bit in China, but it's very different than we thought it would be 5 years ago. So it keeps moving. This is good. This is the right train. But again, David, it's a 10, 20, 30 years transition. The AI transition is happening as we speak. There's one data center that's being built every 1 or 2 weeks today. And as you know, so a data center is between $500 million and $3 billion a piece. And it's moving at that speed right now. And I think that in our discussion here, we can't miss that transition as well, which is a huge opportunity for the mining industry.
Yeah, just to add, actually, I read a statistic that in the US, energy for AI is going to triple within 3 years, which I think sort of serves to your point. But let's just step slightly back from that for a moment, if we could, Badr. I want to get a feel for slightly beyond the sector itself, although you're very much aligned with it, with the Saudi Arabian Railways. What are the sort of innovations that you're putting in place in infrastructure that actually serve this community?
Yeah, to start with, Saudi Railway Company was founded by the Public Investment Fund to serve the mining industry. This sector is vital for the 2030 vision goals, especially for the economical diversification. Now, railway in Saudi Arabia spanning over 5,000 kilometers connecting major mining hub to industrial region as well as to export ports in Jubail or in Ras Al Khair facilitated already transportation of over 15 million ton annually, and this will go to 19 million by 2030. Innovation in the railway technology is extremely important, especially what we did in Saudi Arabia by investing in the automating of loading and unloading system, designing higher wagon capacity to transport more product, and implementing a real-time monitoring system. Those systems has enabled the operation to become more efficient and cost-effectiveness, which make it, again, an attractive mode of transportation for the mining industry. Now, by offering also investing in the type of locomotive that bring again the effectiveness in terms of fuel consumption. All those initiatives together, they made the railway the reliable, cost-effective mode of transportation that positions Saudi Arabia as a leader in terms of mining logistics, as well as improve the competitiveness of the rail sector in a global market.
I mean, it's an important message about integration of sectors, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for that. We have Robert right in the middle here, taking notes, which is good to see. As you should, as an academic, you should. I'm going to hold your ammunition for a moment, if I can, because I want to talk to two providers of innovative services, if I could, as we go down the line. John Stanton from Weir Group. Are the priorities right, John? Is the investment enough? I know you're going to say never enough. But what are perhaps the challenges for getting your message out and delivering your innovative offers?
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, the problem is if you take it to the highest level, it's quite simple. You know, the mining industry needs to scale up and clean up. It needs to scale up to deliver the copper, the battery metals, the other resources that are going to be required to enable the energy transition. But it needs to clean up, use less energy, use less water, be less impactful on communities, on biodiversity, and so on. And all of that cleanup piece is going to require innovation, technology, engineering to problem solve and create the solutions that are necessary for the industry to deliver. What are the challenges? Well, you know, we all know the industry is traditionally very conservative in the adoption of new technologies, and that's sort of historically been the case. I think that's starting to change. We're sort of certainly starting to feel that our customers are much more receptive to the adoption of newer technologies, and I'll come on to what they may be. And that's because we do have a real, when you put that scale up and clean up challenge together, it's a real burning platform, right? You know, for the world, literally. I mean, there's huge purpose in everything that we're trying to do. So what we need more of is more collaboration between the industry, between governments, between the suppliers, providers of capital, the broader ecosystem, to ensure that the industry has enough capital to invest in technology, and frankly to take some risks in terms of how mines are built, developed, expanded in the future. And I think, you know, this is not something, when I talk about technology, it's not something that's, you know, the mine of the future or tomorrow. We've heard, you know, AI is here, it's now, it's ready. There are use cases out there that we're piloting right now. And I think we're just on the cusp of something very big from an AI point of view. But it's also in the equipment and hardware as well. You know, there is equipment available today, new flow sheets, new processes, which are capable of significantly reducing energy consumption, reducing water consumption, providing safer and less impactful environmental processes. So I think it's here and now. We need collectively to take a leap and embrace and move forward, because I think then the future is deliverable.
I think that's a really important point about the here and now, because Sami, if I come to you, there is bound to be a reluctance to say, okay, we better do away with this equipment for the sake of what the new innovation is, when that equipment has another 5-10 years in it, for example. And I guess that's part of your challenge.
Yeah, and sometimes even more. So I think it's very clear the world, regardless if there is an energy transition or anything, that the world is going to be needing more metals in the future. That we are all aware of. And now our challenge as an industry is then to make sure that what are the innovative things that we can create to make sure that we are able to produce what the world needs, so that we are not going to be the bottleneck as an industry for the future growth and prosper of the whole world. And then it comes for innovative technologies, of course, to produce more efficiently from the energy perspective or productivity perspective. But one thing that is very clear is as well that we need to think more about how do we get more out of the existing assets. We have already done a good work of innovativeness and installing the equipment there. How can we produce more, and how can we produce more clean way out of those? And what you were referring to is is a true fact that actually we have done a very good sustainability act in the supplier side of the industry, because the lifetime of the equipment is decades when maintained well, and there's also a second life that can be given to those equipment by upgrading and modernizing them to be utilizing 2025 all the benefits. So this is what we need to also commit as an industry, that we max out the lifetime of the equipment and take good care. And maybe one more point that where we need to spend more innovative brain power is that existing mining sites, how do we make more out of those by truly utilizing the AI capabilities in the future and having all the big brain of the whole world to support that operation? Because this is a common challenge that we have. We need to produce more.
Well, and a quick question while we're at that end of the table, as it were, for both of you. How have you found convincing companies within the sector that there might be a premium to that it might cost a bit more, or can you not do that?
I can start. There might be a premium, but really how we see the world is that the ESG alone is not the reason for premium. There needs to be other benefits that can be created. That's either higher productivity, higher efficiency, or something else. ESG is part of our research and development agenda all the time. We don't give up anything out of that because we believe that this is needed. But alone, that is not the reason for the premium.
John?
Yeah, I'd say two things. I think, first of all, I don't think there needs to be a compromise or a trade-off. I mean, I don't think you have to, have more cost to have the sustainability benefits. I think in many, many cases there is a real win-win opportunity, because if you can do the things that are going to reduce the energy consumption, reduce water consumption, you're also going to be saving cost. So in studies that we've done with a sort of future flow sheet versus a historic flow sheet, you can reduce costs compared to the old way of doing things by 20%, reduce your CO2 emissions by 50%, so you have a wonderful commercial outcome, and you're doing exactly the right thing from an ESG point of view as well, so that's great. And the other thing I would say is that, I do detect among our customers that they're, to my earlier point about collaboration, there has been quite a big shift over the last couple of years in terms of thinking about how the miners, the equipment suppliers, other stakeholders partner and work together and collaborate in a way that, historically relationships may have been more bilateral, more transactional. We're now moving into a different world, and I really detect that our customers are reaching out for help because they know that it is a burning platform. They know that we need collective efforts to deliver the solutions, and they're very open to that.
That's a positive sign, very positive
very
sign.
much. Right.
Robert, you've been very patient picking up on this. You're the outsider looking in to a degree. You have a very clear perspective on what the priorities should be, nonetheless. So.
Sure. Yeah, I think our work at Columbia University, we're looking very closely at the questions of energy transition, artificial intelligence, critical minerals. But how do these pieces all fit together, and what's the role of policy? So a lot of the innovation discussion we've had here has been about business models, has been about technology and partnerships. We also need an innovative approach for policy, and I would maybe highlight three areas in particular. First, we have to start on the mining side with community partnerships. Right, I'm seeing across the industry and hearing a lot of conversations here in Saudi Arabia from a global perspective about how can we have more effective community partnerships, not just for sort of moral reasons, but also to create, de-risking for these projects, and that means benefit sharing of different kinds. A second area for innovation is certainly going to be around the question of finance, and when it comes to areas such as financing greenfield mining in emerging economies that maybe haven't had mining experience before, or maybe trying to permit and finance smelting or upgrading operations in a developed country, the traditional financial models are not working. We're kind of underinvesting in areas like exploration. We're underinvesting in the midstream as well. So I think the idea of blended finance, with the government playing a bigger role, as we're seeing here in Saudi, can be effective in other countries as well. And the third area, I think, for innovation on the policy front would be looking at the question of trade. And that might be the most challenging one, because everything that we're talking about here with the energy transition, with building more data centers and making better use of AI, economic development, is sort of built on an assumption of a frictionless global trade system and global political cooperation. And how do we sustain that at a time of international conflict, economic conflict, political conflict, even military conflict in some cases? And if we can't do it at the global level, what can we do at the regional level? So I think the conversation at FMF about the super region and what can be done within this region is really interesting, and how those partnerships work. So I think the topic of innovation is great, but we should include the policy side as well.
Interesting. Christoph, for a man whose life lies in water, a global resource, but a very much stretched resource, I imagine the importance of some of those points of partnership, of collaboration is critical in your line. It's not just about silos of one to another company.
Yeah, actually, what's interesting with water, unlike carbon that's global, water is local, mostly. So there's a big difference between the two. But one thing that we've learned over the years, there's the collaboration with the government, for sure, as Robert is saying. We've been working very closely with the French government, for instance, as well. So finding ways to organize the government together with the industry, together with the academic institutions, to really have a roadmap on how do you manage natural resources in a way that helps everybody make more money. Because that question on premium is a very interesting one. Electric cars that are more expensive than the ICE cars, well, they don't sell. So the premium doesn't work at the end of the day. It needs to be more efficient, and we've demonstrated we can truly do that as well. California has been a very interesting one, dramatic, what's happening right now as well. But having a roadmap with the industry on how to get the job done. In California, it's to reduce by 26% the water usage of industry in the state within the next 5 years. I've been impressed how the industry has been aligning behind the state to get that done. And last point I'll mention, 150 companies in the world impact a third of the world water usage. 150 companies, this is nothing. We can be in the same room, and we've created that World Water Resilience Coalition just before COVID in 2020. We have 40 companies, started by Microsoft, by the way, that have come together to exchange innovation. What you do in the food and beverage industry, what you do in the energy industry, what you do in the mining industry, to learn from each other. It's to work on river basins as well, because that's the way water is managed as well. I've been really impressed how companies work together, get things done, while working together with the government. And I think that could be a great benchmark for Saudi Arabia as well.
That's interesting. Saleh, you may be feeling quite self-satisfied in terms of that sense of integration. You've brought it into play already through the Aramco transition process. How much more can be done, nonetheless, in terms of knowledge transfer? You talked about talent development as well.
For an oil and gas player, the question is how can we add value to the mining sector? I think one of the areas we're looking at right now that has actually encouraged us to move into this sector is really extracting minerals utilizing oil and gas technology. We, as a company, are leading in drilling many wells. We have so many rigs in the kingdom right now, and we own companies that can manufacture rigs, so we can customize them. So we can drill, hinging on our advantages again, that we have accumulated over 90 years, and now we can employ it to extract minerals using wells which are potentially, at least, can be low cost and also more environmentally friendly. Now, we are already working on drilling the first lithium well that can extract water brines from our fields. That will be one way where we can hinge on our advantage to produce that resource. Additionally, and this is a very interesting area for us as well, is looking at extracting the hard rocks using a combination of drilling technology and our access to a wide spectrum of chemicals to leach and dissolve some of these minerals or rocks that can be leached with different type of solvents. This is a promising way that Saudi Aramco, with its strong expertise, can really add another perspective to the production of minerals with a potentially lower cost and more environmentally friendly procedures.
Right, so there's quite a lot further still to go. But in terms of railways then, and we can come back to an issue which I think everyone's reflected to a degree, technology, digital-driven initiatives that you've put in place there. What might they be and how might they then apply and benefit the mineral sector?
There are a lot of technology adopted today in the railway that has enabled the growth of the railway in Saudi Arabia. Example is the real-time monitoring system that reduces the downtime for any railway operation, and in addition to the utilization of the control system that is the highest in terms of safety as well as in terms of reliability to produce and provide the reliable service. In terms of the technology and the integration coming with the mining industry, adopting and customizing the railway wagon as well as the loading and unloading system, this has been an innovation here in Saudi Arabia and never been done anywhere else. That enable, just to materialize this as an example, one train of phosphate, for example, has a quantity of 16,000 tons being loaded within 4 hours only and unloaded as well within 4 hours only. This is equivalent for 300 trucks. So our operation is removing annually over 2 million truck trips. That's significantly contributing to the road safety, less risk in terms of accident, as well as the wear and tear and this. And as well, in the other technological system that has been also adopted within the railway is the type of software we use for our locomotive to maintain the efficiency of fuel. The current operation reduced the gasoline consumption by 3 million barrels annually. Right. This is significant, and this is very contributing to the Saudi environmental objective as well as the cost efficiency in terms of energy. The last but not least is the becoming more friendly, because the railway is a very friendly environmental mode of transportation, because we emit less carbon, 70% less than the other mode of transportation. All those technology come together with a very huge impact to the mining industry as well as to the society.
It does sound a little bit like, how integrated is that, briefly? Because the mining sector is a great beneficiary of that, but perhaps by good chance, rather than it being driven, because you have to meet your own standards of decarbonization.
Having the railway and the mining under one umbrella by one owner and also being designed together as one program made all this benefit being realized here in Saudi Arabia, not anywhere else.
Right, okay, thank you. Robert, I want to come back to you on the policy point you were making, and it's something that I'm going to throw down the line to the gents at the end as well. How far do you think policy can change what is this massive sector in the first place? And I know the issue of permitting and the like is something that you both feel very strongly about down the end of the line.
Yeah, I think policy will play an important role in the regulatory side. Of course, that's always been the case, things like permitting and safety and so forth. But there's also another layer which is a little bit more strategic, kind of along the lines of what Christophe was saying about big national and global level goals around climate change, around managing AI. How can governments play a role in aligning the industry with other industries and other countries in delivering these kind of outcomes? I do think another area that we haven't talked about yet is building a little bit on what was said earlier, the idea of secondary recovery and getting more out of existing assets and the brownfield sites. You can take that another step further and also talk about the importance of recycling and circularity, right? Then you have the whole value chain from greenfield mining to getting increased recovery from secondary brownfield mining, and then ultimately to end of life circularity and recycling. And that's something that when you look at that whole value chain, including the R&D and innovation at the front end, the customer at the back end, government can, especially in big parts of the world where the government is a huge part of the economy, can play a critical role, I think, in
That's really interesting, because if I could put that, so secondary recovery, recycling, those sorts of areas ripe for innovation, I guess. I think even a year ago here, recycling was a bit of a sort of, yeah, of course it's going to be important, but it's not that big a deal. Are things changing? Do you know how fast are they changing? And where does the policy bit fit in for you? Where does the policy have to come from?
I think generally from a policy point of view, I agree with Robert. I mean, we need policy to evolve in a way that enables permits and licenses to be granted more rapidly, obviously with the appropriate checks and balances, and we're starting to see that through some of the critical minerals policies that various governments now have. So I think that's quite encouraging. I think broader policy actually around water consumption, environmental concerns could also be a stimulus for technology, which we see in some parts of the world. So for example, if you go to Chile, you are not, if you are expanding a mine or building a new mine, you are not allowed to draw fresh water from rivers or boreholes. You have to use ocean water. So, how does that work? That's a stimulus for technology. So I think there can be secondary benefits from the policy in terms of stimulating technologies. In terms of the point about secondary recoveries, recycling, I think it all has a part to play. I don't think there's one thing that's the sort of silver bullet to any of the solutions. I think we need more from existing mines, we need new mines, we need more recycling, we need all of the above if we're to enable the production of more materials for the energy transition. But I do agree with Sami that there is a massive opportunity on existing mines to drive more efficiency. We think that most mines around the world are somewhat inefficient, and up to 30–40% of what goes through a concentrator is just recirculating load, which is waste. So how you eliminate that waste and eliminate downtime is a massive, massive opportunity for the industry.
Christoph, quickly. Yep.
Yeah, it's a trigger for innovation. There's this example that comes to mind for me in India, a major steel-making site in Jamshedpur, where the government said, you guys want to double steel production? You don't have more water. We made it, because we worked together with the government, brought new technologies in a very old site as well, and the cost went down as well at the same time. So policy can be driving innovation too.
Thank you for that. Sami, I want to just bring you on the same, essentially the same point.
Yeah, first of all, the policies and regulation is needed in our industry. Let's take that as a positive sign, but it cannot be over-regulated or over-policized. Policies, they make sure that, things are taken good care from the ESG, S and G point of view, and that is also very important to keep in mind. But you referred to a very important point, and the world needs more metals, and we need to somehow solve this challenge. And recycling is clearly one that is maybe not yet fully exhausted from the innovation point of view. Recycling of the old batteries to get more battery metals taken into reuse. Recycling of worn-out equipment or worn-out parts to get, the metals. So there is so high prospects of the demand of the metals like copper in the future. We need to learn how to circulate back already once utilized metals from our consumer products.
I think it's good in a sector which deals in decades rather than days, weeks, months and years to end on a note of urgency, because essentially that's what the innovation cycle needs to be. Our time is up, gentlemen. Thank you so much indeed for your contributions, for the examples, the real concerns, and perhaps the policy appreciation that isn't necessarily there in the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel, thank you very much indeed.